And welcome back into a brand new episode of Tribal Council Chat, the flagship show of the Reality Realm Network. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller,
And my name's Brett Parnell.
and let's dive in. So, Survivor 47, Episode 2. Before we get to Player of the Week, which we forgot to do last week, by the way, so we're back on track with that now. What is your overall thoughts on this episode, dude?
Overall thoughts on this episode. It was a really interesting one. I think I was right when we talked with Liz so far to say that this seems to be a very even game. We saw Yellow lose the first challenge. They came back and came first in this one.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I don't know if it's just me or not, but I don't like watching tribes that just suck, as we saw on the previous few seasons, I guess at this point.
Yeah.
I like a more even game, so that I'm excited for. And then already it's week two, and we're seeing players making big moves, so I like it.
Yeah, so overall, I like this episode. There was some stuff I really liked. We'll get to this when we get to Tribal, but I definitely have thoughts on the result that annoyed. I was not a fan of the way things went to Tribal and the person that got voted out,
Yeah,
which I think I texted you about right when I finished.
yeah,
But one of the few times in recent seasons where I like go to bed after watching the episode annoyed.
yeah.
But
Fair.
oh well, it was a fun episode. And
Did you have TK?
I did, and I'm glad you
So,
mentioned this.
so Kevin's got 0 points already once again.
Yeah, I need to write that down. So yeah, he told me, Kevin Oliver, Reality Realm Network contributor, my co-host on Pits.Pals, told me we better make note of how the draft is going so far. So we
Of
did that.
course.
We don't have to mention it again, thankfully. But yeah, and man, someone gets voted off of my tribe, and the deciding vote, swing vote, ends up coming from another person on my tribe and my winner pick, and someone I still feel good about being my winner pick, but I think made a bad move. But we'll get to that. So, who is
Yeah.
your player of the week?
Player of the week, I've got to go with my winner pick, fellow Michelle Fitzgerald fan, Sam Phelan.
I was actually going to go with him also. I thought you would go with I was debating between him and like Sue or someone, but
Mm,
ultimately Sam found an idol and
yep.
he really developed a close number one relationship with Sierra, who's on
Yep.
my team, and he has somebody that really trusts him with Andy, who, and this is how you know how tight him and Sierra are. Sam's thinking, oh, maybe I should keep Andy. He trusts me. And Sierra goes, I don't love the idea, but I trust you, so let's
Yeah.
go with it. So,
And
what?
I like this too, and we'll get into it when we get to that section. But how well Sam, and that's why I picked him, is this exact scene, is how well he's thinking of all of the possible vote combinations in his mind, and then thinks, do I play all this power that I got right away on the person who you would think is going to be the biggest target? And then the other thing that I really like from his move here is that he knows what idols have done recently and is prepared for it. And right away, when Sam does find this idol, he doesn't get tempted by what if I play more games and make it more powerful. He just goes right into how am I going to use this to make a big move and cement my spot in the final 6, 7 of this game at the first vote that we have.
Yeah, it's really great episode for him. I love the way he played things. So let's dive in. The episode starts. We're at Lavo, and that's the red tribe. If you're kind of slow to catch up, I know that tribe names are hard to keep track of
Are
sometimes.
they ever?
Well, and there's like 1,000 of them at this point, and we use like five different colors mostly throughout Survivor. So, but And we talked with Liz last week that it was kind of a bad episode for Rome last week. Not a great one for him this week either.
No.
And
Um,
he cleared
yeah,
last
go
week
ahead.
it was everyone on Lavo basically saying like, yeah, he's shady. If we go to tribal, he's gone. He clearly is not good at reading the room and knowing that. Because the first thing we see this episode is him telling Teeny that he has an advantage.
Yeah, that I found interesting too, because when I watched this, it brought me back to Kim Spradlin in When It Was at War, telling Sophie that she had an advantage. And Sophie then goes to confessional and in that season and says, I'm not the one that Kim should want to tell that she has an advantage. And this just brought me back to like, if Rome has that, why is he not sharing that information with Genevieve? Why is he sharing it with Teeny? Who wants to vote him out?
Because he doesn't know she wants to vote him out.
Exactly.
Which just bad awareness, bad reading your surroundings. So then the next part is even more interesting. We see Teeny tells Keyshawn about the advantage and without telling Rome that they're gonna do that. And then Rome catches this conversation red-handed.
Yeah.
What a sequence here right off the bat.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
And then
This,
Rome's confessional about that is I don't know if I can trust Teeny. Which first
well,
off, you should
obviously
have
you
known that
can't.
already, but they also know they can't trust you because you've dug yourself such a hole already.
Exactly. No, I thought this was great television, especially just to see like that and I think I know that I was explaining this at the time. I think some people in the audience were a bit confused, at least online. But to be like, could Teeny and Keyshawn take Rome's box? No, they can't. At that point, he's already claimed the advantage for himself. So they can't just like find it in the woods and say it's theirs. Production would stop them. But they can read it and they can know exactly what's going on. And then when they catch him, it's just like, I found it interesting because it shows how bad Rome's social game has been. But at the same time, there's a bit of me saying this also is not a great move for Teeny because she seems to be playing such a dominant game early on. But if that gets back to the rest of the tribe, that this could easily, if they were to lose, set up a 4 against 2 if Rome and Genevieve were to tell their tribe mates, you look what Teeny just did to Rome. You can't trust her and Keyshawn.
Yeah. Well, so here's what's interesting. Rome finds the box, opens it, decides to keep the idol that's only good for one tribal, which kind of surprised me just from what we've seen from him so far.
Yeah.
But that's because it's a smart move, I think.
It's a smart move, and I think at that point he also knows he doesn't seem to have great awareness for the game, but I get the sense in that decision that Rome does have a good idea that there's a decent chance that it's him if they do have to go to tribal.
In which I love what he does next. And this is kind of why I want to see Lavo go to tribal next, just to see what happens. Is because he tells Teeny and Keyshawn, hey, I'm playing this at our first tribal we go to no matter what. I'm not the first person going home from our tribe.
Yeah.
Smart move by him, honestly.
It is a smart move, and that's where I say we haven't got to see a lot from Lavu because they've just won 2 challenges and the 2 other tribes haven't and have both been in tribal council. But it'll be interesting to see if he plays that. If I bring up everything for this week, just 2 seconds. But it's like I want to know where Asia and Seoul end up being if it becomes Teeny and Keyshawn versus Rome and Genevieve, with Rome having an idol.
Yeah. And that's where,
And I may be totally off on thinking that that's how the breakdown is, but at least we saw a situation in episode one that leads me to that conclusion where Keeney was not sold on working with Rome at all, but Genevieve was.
yeah. And we later get a montage of Rome just talking to his tribe throughout. That kind of makes me question if Genevieve is still sold on that because we didn't see anything from her. But
We
production,
saw she did not get a confessional this week.
yeah, what's with that? But and we'll get to this, but we get a little montage of Rome at camp, and it's just him being cocky and arrogant and annoying all the time for like 2 or 3 minutes straight of just scene after scene. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that was funny. Um, Probably at this point, it's just like we said, this tribe's won twice. They're just kind of in that situation where the game's only 26 days. So that means that they've at this point already just sat on the beach and survived through about a sixth of this game already,
Yeah,
which is crazy to think of with that math, but it's true. It goes by in lightning speed in the new era.
yeah. So we moved from Lavo to Tuku, and he says that we see TK saying that Gabe really hasn't been connecting with people very well. Which my note on this was that's a bad combination with how messy Gabe was last week.
Yeah, that's a bad combination because you're right. Gabe did have a messy first episode. It's also something if that even at this point of the episode, I started to get worried for TK in this spot because if he's already making those decisions, you've got to wonder how much impression, what impression of how much power you have versus actually, or think you have versus actually have in this game is good this early on.
Yeah, for sure.
And if TK is in a spot that he's already seeing not only his own game, but that he's in charge of determining who's having good episodes and who's been behind on the rest of the tribe, that might not be a good spot for him to be in because everybody can have, well, how many times have we seen everyone take down the player that is basically thinking they're the king on this show?
Oh, all the time, for sure.
Exactly.
And so after
Shout
this
out to Parvati for that quote.
after this, we see TK talking to Tiana. And I kind of love this. I love seeing that an alliance is forming because it's my winner pick and it's someone from my tribe with Tiana,
Nice.
TK, who's also on my tribe. And so TK proposes a trio of him, Kyle, and Tiana, and he proposes it to both of them separately, which is interesting. I like that. In
Yeah.
case one of them's not on board, you don't want to feel like you're pressuring them into it.
Yeah.
And all three of them, at least at this point, they all say they're fully on board with this trio. That we'll get to whether that stays true or not later, or whether it fell apart however quickly. But
I think the interesting thing with this spot is, at least if I was playing, and I'm curious to know what you think, Bruce, but if I'm playing, I don't want to propose a trio at this point of the game. You always want the number to be four. Because if the number is three, it's easy for someone like Tiana to say, I'm with these two guys, and therefore I'm in the third.
well, yes and no. I like the idea of a trio as like the center, but then you do what they tried to do, and they bring in someone like a Gabe who gives you the majority but isn't in the inner circle. And that gives you a
Fair
little
enough.
bit more power also that you kind of have an alliance within the alliance where you can say it if you make the end, hey, like I was in this alliance, but there was a smaller alliance within that running the big alliance.
That makes sense.
And they tried to do that. They tried to bring Gabe in as a fourth. He was never with them. I don't think they realized that. Well, they did. They realized it was a 3-3 split.
When it was too late.
Also, and I have this thought also, and I was going to save this till we're talking about the results and at Tribal, but if you're as part of a four, if you're going to be at the bottom, you said if she feels like she's at the bottom of this three with two guys, I would rather be at the bottom of three than be at the bottom of four.
Interesting.
Because, I mean, if you're at the bottom of three, you can always just bring someone in, like they did all the time in Cambodia, and just bring someone in for one vote.
True.
If you're on the bottom of four, especially in the post merge, like if you're gonna be at the bottom, you want the number to be smaller. I feel like because
Yeah, it
when
makes sense.
it's down to that number, if you're gone, your placement's higher. I'd rather make final three than final four. I'd rather make final four than final five, and so on.
Well, if you make Final Four at this point in the game, all all you have to do is make a fire and get to the end.
Or
And if
just
you make Final Five with an immunity idol, all you have to do is play it, make fire, and get to the end.
yeah. But I see your point and I like it, but I feel like three might be the way to go if you feel like you can just bring in a fourth person
Yeah,
for each vote and it doesn't even have to be the same fourth person every time.
that's true.
So that's all we get from this very brief 2 Kusi. And we move to Gata. And this is simultaneously hilarious, but if I was Andy, I feel like I would kind of hate this. After he made a big deal last week about mentioning that they don't cheer when he opened a coconut, we see them this week pretty much cheering and clapping as a tribe every single little thing he does. Which, and I get it, like they say, they want him to feel comfortable. They want to make him feel as much a part of the team as they can.
Yeah.
But if I'm Andy and I just said that, and then this is the response, it almost feels a little bit patronizing.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
I would hate that if they were doing it to me.
Yeah, no question. So would I. Um, that being said, I don't think something that's as mundane of a task on Survivor as opening a coconut, it was a weird response from Andy that maybe triggered this as well.
Yeah, it was a weird response from him, but I mean, if he's already in his head and paranoid and overthinking, then he sees someone else get cheered for something and then he does the same thing and it's nothing. I could kind of see how overthinking would lead to the result he came to, as ridiculous as it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so at this point in the episode, Gada still wants to vote Andy out, but they don't want him to be suspicious. So they're playing buddy buddy. And they even say like we're trying to make him feel as a part of the group as we can. Which, even though they want him out, that's a smart strategy. I feel
It
like.
is. It at least keeps him in a level-headed perspective where he's going to still be working to try to win immunity and move forward in the game and think he has a chance. Unlike when we saw a player that Andy's being compared to last season, Banu just broke down and was on a journey on his hands and knees begging to the other tribe because he had no idea what to do and he knew everybody wanted him out.
Yeah, it was. And this might be. We don't do funny quotes on this show like as much as Pit Stop Pals does because we're a lot more like analytical and breaking stuff down and digesting and all that. But this quote from Annika is just hilarious. Andy is giving off toxic, clingy boyfriend.
Yeah, that was great.
I'm not sure how deep she's going. I feel better after the first couple episodes than I did based off of the EW cast release. But I like Annika so far.
Yes, same. And
I'm
she's on my team, so
I'm still I don't know. I think she has potential to go really far, but I also think she may already be on people's radars.
That's a
So,
good point. I guess we'll see how everything plays out with that idol whenever it comes up time to use it.
yeah. And so, speaking of fantastic, just pure comedy of a scene here. First off, beginning of it is the rest of the group has basically put Sam on Andy watch and on babysitting duty for a little while they do who knows what, so that they don't, so that he doesn't find an idol. I think the rest of them are looking for an idol at this point.
Yep.
And so, and
This was
Sam says
good.
a great quote here. He says, I want to be Andy's buoy in an ocean where he feels like he's drowning. I want him to feel like he can bring me information. And
Yeah.
great strategy from Sam here. And this is where we kind of start to see the wheels turning and see the beginning of what comes to later in the episode, where Sam straight up says to Sierra, I don't want to vote Andy out next. Let's go in a different direction. And she
Yep.
agrees. But then right after this, and it's already kind of funny to me that they had like they're giving Andy a babysitter.
Like he's betting at him with Boston Rob.
My thought went to who was it? I think it was someone on the villains tribe. Might have been Sandra that Russell and his crew decided they always wanted to have someone watching.
Yep.
But Andy Sam walks away for like a minute, maybe two, and he comes back and Andy's just disappeared. And I yesterday I sent you a picture of this. Let me pull it up. Sam tweeted something about this. Like I'm guessing while the episode was going, that made me laugh. Yeah, Sam tweeted, "I'm a bad babysitter." Like this whole little, the fact that they had him babysitting it all is funny. The fact that he literally walked away for like a minute or two and came back and Andy was gone is funny. And then his reaction to seeing Andy gone was funny. And then right after this, and we don't, this is where it stops. We come back to see the end of this story. But we're left on a cliffhanger, which might just be, I don't know if it's funny or just pure face palm here. Andy finds the beware advantage on a tree branch
That was great.
and decides to leave it there and says if he needs it and the time is right, he can always go back and get it.
We'll see about that. You're not on Exile Island.
My question, I'm starting to think though, have we ever seen someone find a beware advantage and choose to not take it?
Um, Genie
That's right, because Ricard
with
and Shan
41.
convinced her not to, so that
Yeah,
they could, though.
that's the only other option.
Great move by Ricard and Shan there, by the way,
Yeah.
convincing her not to take it so that they can go back and get it. That was something. And so, moving on, we're back at Lavo, and this little scene at Lavo is where we get the. I think this is where we get the Rome stuff really kicks into gear because Rome wants to be the first one to make fire for whatever reason. I don't know. And he asks like, "Hey, did you guys practice making fire with flint and machete at home before you came out here?" And this is the quote I wrote down. I made fire every day before coming out here. My record is 16 seconds.
Don't tell people that.
I then put if he makes it late into the game, people will take him out before forced fire.
Yep.
Then right after that, my next note was never mind because we see him do this and try time and time again for who knows how long it was and keep failing. Then Keyshawn decides to take over and try and succeeds immediately and gets fire started.
Yeah. Sounds to me like, and this isn't the only scene that I'm seeing this. But Rome seems to be the talker in this tribe.
Yeah. And I think this is, if I remember, this is where we get this montage of him just talking and annoying people and being cocky and saying things like, "Oh, I could have played in the NBA," and someone, I think it was
Yeah.
Heaney, goes, "Oh, why weren't you drafted then?" And he just keeps going because he doesn't have a good answer.
Yeah,
It's
he said I
hysterical.
stopped playing.
It's This montage is just comedy. It's hilarious.
Yeah, that was funny. I looked at my dad at the time when he said that, and I'm like, well, at least other players that we see in reality television who wanted to become pro athletes actually tried all the way through college, like Fessy on the challenge,
Yeah.
as opposed to, oh, I could have done it, but I didn't even try. So what's the point?
Rome's definitely, and again, we don't know from Genevieve, or as you so eloquently pronounced it on our draft, Genevieve.
It is Genevieve. I'm mixing up a French name with an English name.
I know. I'm just messing with you. It made me laugh.
I thought she was from Quebec for the first couple of weeks after I read the interview.
But I don't know about her, but he's rubbing the rest of the tribe the wrong way. And if he didn't
Yeah,
have
he
that
is.
idol, he would be such an easy first boot from Lavo.
Yep.
But since he has that and he's announced to anyone that knows about it, I'm playing this at our first tribal no matter what. I don't know who's going first from this tribe.
Rome, hold your idol in your pocket because you're on Kevin's team.
I would love that, but he's not on the cast of 46 that thought idols were just meant to stay in your pocket. So
Yeah, that's true.
I still can't believe we had 4 episodes in a row of people going home with an idol last season. We
I
have
know.
gone entire seasons without anyone doing that. And last season gave us 4 in a row.
And despite everyone saying how many idols there are in this game, last season we didn't see one person go home because somebody else played an idol.
Yeah. And so after this Rome sequence, I feel like there's a chance he goes home with that in his pocket because this feels like production just saying, "Hey, he's going first."
Yeah,
He,
it's very possible.
we'll see. We go back to Gata, and you remember a few minutes ago that advantage that Andy decided to leave in there because he didn't want to risk his vote yet.
Yep.
Sam and Annika find it.
No,
Find the advantage that Andy
Sam
left.
and Sierra.
No, him and Annika find it
Oh,
first.
I didn't know that Annika knew anything about it. That's interesting.
No, so
My
here's what it was, and we get into all of this.
okay.
He and Annika are breaking things down in the woods and decide, "Hey, let's just go look right now." And they go find it, and they both realize, "Hey, I have people I trust more than the other person." And Sam says, "Well, no,
That's right.
we'll get there." But huge dumb fumble by Andy here. Annika mentions that the advantage makes more of a threat than he already was. And this is where I'm kind of thinking, could he be blindsided this episode if they go back to tribal?
Yeah.
But and this is where it'll explain your confusion. Sam decides that he doesn't want to have a secret with Annika that he doesn't have with Sierra, and he calls Sierra his number one. So he goes and tells Sierra everything that him and Annika found. And at the same time, Annika is telling Rachel, who's, I guess, her number one. And Sam
It
realizes,
seems it seems to me like this tribe is going to be two duos with Andy being a total wild card.
I don't think Andy's a wild card. I think he's pretty loyal to Sam at this point.
Yeah, I think he
But
is, but I mean he's not Sam is his number one, but he is not Sam's number one by any means.
no, I would. He might be Sam's number two, to be honest, though.
Yeah,
But so I'm gonna diagram all this out right now. I'm gonna try to. As we've seen Kelly Wentworth do with whiteboards and whatever else on her videos. Like, can we even see it? Like, never mind. Okay. That's not gonna work. We can't see the notepad on my camera. So Sam and Annika find this together. I just said we just talked about how Sam decides he doesn't want to have a secret with Annika that he doesn't have with Sierra. Sam goes and tells Sierra, and we don't hear any confessionals from Annika about it, but Annika then goes and tells Rachel because I don't think she trusts Sam any more than he trusts her. Sam then realizes, oh, if he doesn't know this yet, if Annika tells Rachel and then I don't, I'm gonna look shady to her. So Sam goes and tells Rachel about it as well.
Yeah.
So everyone but Andy knows that Sam has this thing.
Yeah.
The
And
guy
then
originally
Andy,
found
at least for a while, still thinks he can go back in the trees and get it anytime he wants.
and as all this is happening, that's when he decides to go back and try to look for it and get it again.
Yeah. That was funny to just see him standing, staring at the tree, kind of wondering if it's at the same place he looked before.
And so that what he does is interesting though. And at this point, as he's doing, as Andy is finding it, Sam told Rachel, "I found this key. I found this clue." And he and Rachel go out and find it and untie the knots, I believe. I think it was him and Rachel that did that. So he has the idol now. And Andy takes a leap of faith here. He goes to Sam and explains everything that happened from his perspective. I found it. I left it there. It's gone. And he should have stopped there because Sam probably would have come clean to him at that point.
Yep. Sam
But
played this really well, though.
Sam doesn't say anything yet. And Andy goes, oh, one of the girls must have it. But this is where Sam realizes, hey, Andy took a huge leap of faith sharing this with me.
Yep.
Maybe Andy's someone I can trust long term. And this is where I wrote down this combined with all the random distrust and messy web we just saw. I'm starting to think Andy may not be the next to go from this tribe. And we later see Sam say to Sierra, I don't want Andy to go next.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and I know another much larger podcast said this today, but I think that Andy won't be the next to go because there's just so much incentive for Sam to want him there, as opposed to being in a possible situation where it's two against two. And you don't know if Sierra is going to flip and join the two other girls solely because it's just too easy to do when Sam's such a good player. Sam needs Andy here.
Yeah. And so Sam needs Andy. Rachel has helped Sam locate where the box is, but they didn't have time to undo the knots. That's what it was. And so that's where we are with Gata. What a crazy sequence that was with all the crossing lines. And we go back to Tuku now, and the three that formed earlier decides they want to bring Gabe in as kind of a fourth, like I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
And then he says in a confessional that he doesn't want to work with them for real. He's just saying it. He wants to work with Sue and with Caroline. Which then we immediately see a confessional from Caroline saying she doesn't know how much she trusts Gabe. So what are your thoughts
Yeah,
on all this as this is happening?
that was interesting. I think it's hard to say because we do get that, and it's true that she doesn't know how much she trusts him. But Caroline also doesn't shut the door on it. It's not like she says she doesn't trust him. She's just not unsure.
Yeah.
So therefore, could the vote change Caroline's perspective on this a lot? potential alliance with Gabe in the future? I absolutely think so. That might be me getting to the end of the episode, but I mean, it all kind of blends together at some point.
Yeah. And so this is where I wrote down and kind of prophesizing the future here in a way. We now have two sets of three. Gabe,
Yeah,
Sue, and Caroline. Then we have Tiana, Kyle, and TK. If Tuku goes to tribal, this could get very interesting.
yeah. And I really like, I forget which castaway explains it, but I really like how they're explaining it on this season in that you have players saying, if we go to rocks, you almost want to be one of the two getting votes because then you're immune. Whereas the rest of us, it's complete random chance.
Yeah.
And
And
that's where, if you're Gabe, and I know we've touched on this on the other beaches, but Gabe also has his advantage going on, that it's very smart of him not knowing what's going to happen to play that at this tribal council, knowing that then if we do go to rocks and nobody votes for him, he's not pulling rocks either. It not only gives him safety, but gives whichever side he decides to vote with the best chance of coming out ahead after a rock draw.
yeah. And so the next scene we see is Sue gets really annoyed because she's trying to sleep on the beach and the guys walk by talking while she's trying to sleep. And she's kind of talking with venting to Tiana a little bit. And Sue says in a confessional that she can't stand TK and she doesn't think Tiana does either because she doesn't know that this trio has formed on the other side of the tribe.
Yep.
And right here is brilliant from Tiana. Tiana says she doesn't really know if she vibes with TK as a person, but still feels good working with him in the game. And I wrote down, this is a brilliant way to approach this. She said this in her cast release, and this is part of why she was my winner pick. And I still feel good about her as my winner pick.
Yeah, that's
But
absolutely a great way to approach this because you never, in Survivor, you never want to dismiss somebody. So if Sue has frustrations with TK, you don't want to automatically throw that away and not potentially, oh, well, not, I mean, potentially damage a relationship that you could have with Sue. At the same point in time, you don't want to get so passionately down that road if it's not something that's bothering you to the point that it's going to get back to TK and then you can't work with him either.
yeah, the thing is, and I still feel good about her as my winner pick. But after the end of this episode and the result of it, and again, we'll get to this when we get to Tribal, I'm kind of questioning how much she actually is following that or means that she doesn't have to feel good about vibing with you as a person. If it's smart to work with you in the game, she's good.
Yeah.
Because after the result of this, it really doesn't feel like she meant that in a way.
Right.
So, but we're not there yet. So, oh well. Let me see. So we go back to Gata again, and Sam and Sierra find the idol. They finally untie these knots, and Lord knows how many of these knots there were. So one of them gave a guess. I forget what it was, but it was some ridiculously large number that I feel like has to be way more than what was there.
Yeah.
But they find it. They decide to keep the one tribal idol. And right here is where Sam tells Sierra that he wants to keep Andy. And in parentheses, I called that because I predicted that in my notes last time we were visiting Gata.
Nice. Yeah,
And
I
right
think
here, I love this for them as a duo. Because Sierra says in a confessional she doesn't love the idea, but she trusts Sam and is willing to go along with it because she trusts him and trusts his instinct.
yeah, and I really like that. They definitely seem to be a duo that's moving forward and knows how to get numbers on their side that are at least expendable for the time being. And I mean, if they decide later that they don't trust Andy, guess what? After one of the two girls are gone, being Annika or Rachel, you can get rid of him if you have to.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to see anyone go home from Gata though. I
no, I
genuinely
agree
like
with
pretty
you.
much everyone on this tribe.
Yeah, absolutely. I like this tribe as well. I don't know what if there was a tribe. I'm just going to throw out a question not really related to the episode, but it's a good talking point. What tribe do you want to see go to tribal council next week?
Mostly Lavo, I think, because I genuinely don't know what's going to happen there. But also, Rome isn't on my team, and he's the one that I feel like is safe because he's playing his idol no matter what he says.
Yeah,
And I don't think Keyshawn or Saul are in a ton of danger, but I don't want to lose anyone from my team.
true.
So I don't know. The, that's my answer, though. I'm very intrigued to see what happens if they go to tribal.
Yeah, that would be
Jerome
interesting.
keeps his idol in his pocket. He seems like he kind of believes what people will tell him. If they can convince him he's safe, well, never mind. His idol's only good for one tribal anyway. There's
Yep.
genuinely no reason to keep it. So he's not
No,
going anywhere.
there isn't.
I forgot about that. But the only person who got any idol that was good longer than one tribal played it at his first tribal council anyway. So a tribal council where he knew he wasn't getting any votes. But we'll
Yeah,
get to that because it confused the crap out of me for about 10 seconds and I realized why he did it.
yeah,
So we get to the challenge, and the fans of our show know I love when like sassy Jeff comes out. And I wrote down a quote here that I'm classifying as sassy Jeff, but I kind of want to put it in its own folder called unhinged Jeff.
yeah.
Because Probst is doing what he always does. He goes and like collects the immunity idols. And you might know where I'm going with this. I don't know. He goes and collects the immunity idols. The tribes act all sad about having to give it up. They don't want to. Happens for 47 seasons now.
Yep.
But this quote from Probst, let me find it. Oh, here we go. Come on, give it up and don't make me pull out my knife. What the heck?
Yeah, seriously.
I love sassy Jeff. I love sassy Jeff. I think we've unlocked unhinged Jeff.
I think so.
And I'm
And
here for
I
more
mean,
quotes like this. But like
with the,
what?
with the fact of what happens in later on in this challenge and that it involves bags of rice, that was such a great throwback to a couple seasons ago too,
Yeah.
where we have unhinged Jeff just stab a bag of rice that the players are negotiating over.
I forgot about that. We might have unlocked unhinged Jeff a few seasons ago, but now we have unhinged quotes from him.
Yeah.
Sassy Jeff will always be my favorite. We see it come out sometimes, not super often, but
Except if Jonathan Penner is playing.
for Colton.
Yeah.
He said to Colton, "We brought a quitter back and you're quitting again, even though medical pulled him the first time." Like, one of my least favorite castaways ever, but Colton didn't quit of his own accord the first time.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
the
still
thing that
funny.
they pulled him thinking something was wrong and it ended up not being that. But medical made that choice. I
Yeah.
think Jeff legitimately just wanted to throw shade at Colton while he was quitting
I don't
and
blame
gave
him.
up that he quit the first time.
Yeah.
But which I don't know. I've seen arguments that he kind of quit. I don't know. Colton's one world exit is kind of a gray
Bizarre.
area. But do you kind of want to explain? Oh, hold on. Before I ask you to explain the challenge, we're also playing for reward. First
Yep.
place gets a big fishing kit that just looks ginormous.
Yeah.
Second place gets a smaller set of fishing supplies. All right,
But
so
I mean, I find this reward interesting all the time because I don't know about you, but they always give out this like first place gets the big fishing kit, second place gets the smaller fishing kit. Does anybody ever use any of these supplies that's not a mask, snorkel, fins, and the Hawaiian sling? It's just so easy.
I don't know.
So I almost think it's pretty equivalent.
I also feel like it'd be interesting, and I'd be okay if only first place got the reward.
Yeah,
Why does second place need a reward? You don't have to go to tribal. That's your reward. If you want the other stuff, finish first.
that's a good point.
I feel like I feel old. I feel like I'm saying get off my lawn there, but it you don't need to give second place a fishing reward. That's for the
Yeah,
winner.
yeah, I like that point.
Okay, so I forgot to take notes apparently as Jeff was explaining how the challenge works. Do you kind of want to break this down for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So the challenge starts where we have the tribes um have to be up on a platform and pass a bag of rice between the tribes. Now remember, rice, if it's in water, is going to get heavier. So the big incentive here is keep your bag of rice out of the water as you're bringing it from shore in. They then have to, after they've passed it off a platform, go through a grate and get the rice to fit through a small hole within that while the players are climbing over. Eventually get on the beach, and it's a variation of the table maze that we have. It's this is kind of like the table maze and the battle back from Winners at War and
I
Edge of
wrote that down.
Extinction
It was the Edge of
pushed in
Extinction
together.
Battleback snake, but it was horizontal instead of vertical.
Yeah, exactly. And then as players get to the table, they have to take that knife that Jeff was talking about, stab open the bag of rice. We're going to see some interesting feedback happen here that I want to talk about right after. Inside of the rice is the ball to complete the table maze. And then they have to work on that puzzle or that maze. And then the first two tribes to get it each win immunity plus the reward. Last tribe, as we all know, tribal council tonight, plus they lose their flint because it's the new era after all.
Which they have a fire going already that they can just keep going. I don't know what you're accomplishing taking the flint,
Yeah.
other than just, oh, it sounds and looks badass. But,
Unless it pours rain and then you don't have a fire going.
well, on Amazon, the Merge tribe built a little shelter for their fire, and that can
And lit
be
the
commented
whole
on.
thing ablaze.
Well, we don't need to talk about the fact. Okay, also, sidetracked again. That scene in Survivor Amazon is being filmed. We're watching a challenge. We're watching a tribe go to reward. And during the challenge, we keep cutting back to camp where the little fire shelter caught on fire. Then the giant shelter caught on fire. That's just this giant blazing fire.
Yeah.
And production is just standing there watching everyone's stuff burn down.
Yep. I mean, what else are they going to do? They're not a fire department.
I know, but I'd be frustrated if I was a player. Like I realized their job is to not intercede, but like you could have stopped this, right?
You also could have stopped Butch from building a fire shelter, which we've never seen any tribe other than Amazon think is a good idea.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think the fire shelter in concept is a terrible idea. I think building the ceiling of it that low to the fire, what if you vault the ceiling up a little bit higher, it could work.
I'm going to be honest, I think it's a terrible idea.
No,
Fire is not meant to be around wood unless you want to start a bigger one.
yeah, but well, I get that. It probably is a bad idea, but like you're saying, if you don't have flint and you have to keep your fire going, if it rains, the lid, not lid, the ceiling of the fire shelter was too close to the actual fire.
Right.
If you build the fire shelter taller and say the fire's here, my little hand, I'm doing a flaming motion. but then the roof is like way up here. It could
Yeah,
work.
it could.
We need to try this now. Sometime when we hang out in person, we'll build a fire and we'll build a little shelter and we'll have buckets of water on hand in case it goes wrong. Just throw at it.
Yep, that'd be
But
funny.
where how did we get oh, taking the flint. I forgot how we got down that side road. But yeah, so the challenge itself, yeah, it was a fun challenge, like you say. Really close through the water, through the thing. And at this point, I'm thinking, hey, I forgot they had to stab it open, but it still could have worked. Hey, you could use that bag of rice as part of the reward. The winning tribe could get to keep that,
Yeah,
which I still feel like they could have done. And like you
yeah,
said, we had some very, I don't have specific notes on this, but whoever was going for red, I believe, just went nuts. Stab. It was either red or yellow. Who
it was good.
just went absolutely insane, stabbing the bag of rice.
Yeah,
And if you're not watching on YouTube, I have a pencil
yellow,
and I'm just
because it
stabbing the
definitely
air.
wasn't yellow, because yellow is the tribe that well preserves the rice, leading to a awkward altercation with Unhinged Jeff.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a second. Let's finish the challenge first. Gata is the first through the gate. Lavo second, Tuku last, and then I
Yep.
put this last puzzle is the Edge of Extinction Battleback Snake puzzle, but it's horizontal, and it's also three people doing it instead of one. And you're right, it's not the like handles either; it's a table.
Yep.
I don't. Tuku finishes last. Who finished first and second? I didn't write this down apparently.
Gotta finish first.
Yeah, so Gata and Lavo finish first and then second. Tuku going to trial, but before we go back to our camps, why don't you explain this little altercation you've been teasing here?
Yeah, so we noticed during the challenge that on Gata, Rachel Lamont carefully, unlike what we saw from the other tribes, cuts the tribe. I can't remember if it was her who did it or somebody else, but cuts the bag of rice open to get her ball in a very orderly fashion. And Rachel's making comments throughout the challenge that says, I'm so hungry, I could just eat this hard rice right now. And then we start to all of the sudden see her pockets filling up larger than Rupert's rock in Heroes versus Villains.
Rupert's rocks.
To which Jeff says at the end of the challenge, wait, Rachel, have you been filling your pockets with rice? And she has. I don't know when the rules changed, and this is why I wanted to bring this up. But if you go watch like Pearl Islands in the challenge where they had to fire projectiles at targets up on the mast, you see Rupert and Burton and Fairplay and Sandra eating chestnuts for the next like episode or two.
Huh.
You see Rob doing the same thing on All Stars at one point. Davey on David versus Goliath tweeted or put on threads or something. What is this about you can't steal food from challenges anymore? I did that 2 or 3 times.
I missed the Davy thing and I missed that from Pearl Islands. My thought is, and I'm rethinking this now, that and I've seen a lot of people get onto Probst of, oh, he should have let her keep it. Why did Probst tell her to get rid of it? I don't. I'm rethinking this now because I didn't know the stuff you said. I don't hate it just because I feel like he could be trying to stop a precedent from being set.
Yeah.
Where if you let this happen, people are going to try to take every little thing they can from a challenge, any sort of food or supplies or whatever's there. So I feel like he's just, thought he was just trying to shut it down. You can't take things from challenges back to camp. I
Strip the entire challenge down for supplies and break it like Jake did.
Would you put it past people to try to do that though?
No, I wouldn't.
Like I feel the Pearl Island, the Davy thing, I've never heard. I missed that post. Pearl Islands, I don't remember that, but I believe you. But I don't hate this move from Probst. I feel like
I
he's just trying to stop a slippery slope of a precedent from being set.
I agree with you. I don't hate the move from Probst at all. My only question is why now, and does it have anything to do with, oh, we need to be harder because this is a 26-day game, or it's the new era, or the game's more dangerous than it ever is, or whatever else we've heard lately? Or is production just trying to get control of this?
I think they're trying to keep a slippery slope from happening. And I
Yeah.
think part of it's like you said, the new era is harder. They used to give tribes rice at the beginning of seasons. They used to not take their flint away. Probst and production are very much intentional about food and making things harder on the castaways than it used to be.
Oh,
I think it's a combination of all the stuff that both of us have said.
yeah, I would see that. All right.
So we leave the challenge. We're back at two. Let's get into this because I must have been up getting something because get back to Tuku and they explained it a little bit, but there was an altercation with TK and Tuku at the end of the challenge, I guess.
Yeah, let me check my notes.
They kind of explain it a little bit,
I don't really remember a ton from it or how relevant it was, but
but it has some immediate friction when we get back beyond between Tiana and TK. And basically, the way I remember it being told was Probst mentions to Tuku that they're going to tribal council and someone was smiling. TK didn't see who it was, but was not a fan of that, didn't think that people should be okay with losing, that they're about to go
I
to tribal and that people shouldn't be happy about that.
yeah, I did have this in my notes. And not only that, but I how we were talking before, like, is Andy the new Banu comparing the last season to this season?
Yeah.
I wrote down, is TK the new Q?
I got that vibe, but I honestly I don't disagree with TK. Like, if you lost, you're going to tribal. And I missed the scene. I must have been up getting a drink or a snack or something. But if you lost, you're about to go to tribal. Why are like you're enough of a competitive person that you want to be out here and want to play. Why are you happy or smiling? Like that's the worst case scenario for you.
Yeah, I see both sides.
He
In
probably
one,
didn't go about it in the best way. He probably could
that's
have
it.
been less aggressive about it, but I don't disagree with his point at all.
Yeah, his point's right, but I'm not sure. In a game where social relationships matter more than challenge strength, I'm not sure if this was the best approach to the fact that you lost, because at some point everybody's going to go to tribal.
Yeah. I will say overall social relationships more important than challenging. Pre-merge, I still subscribe to the old school thought of you need to keep your tribe strong in challenges pre-merge because that's how you stay away from tribal.
So
I don't know if at one point that was kind of majority thought. I don't know if that still is or if I'm in the minority on that, but I still feel like
it's certainly a close debate amongst the community, I would say.
but see, I feel it's probably been close since I've really gotten into it, but I feel like at one point my way of thinking here was probably a vast majority. And that's
Yeah,
changing, but I'm sticking to that. I
fair
think
enough.
that pre-merge your goal should be to stay away from tribal, and the way you do that is by winning challenges.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ed Tuku, there's a bit of friction between Tiana and TK, and we see Kyle talk about wanting to fix this and wanting to keep this trio together. And it's a great move by Kyle to keep this alliance together that he knows is his best chance. And it reminds me of Sophie in South Pacific, who
Yeah.
to me is a very interesting winning game because her big move, her big resume move, was that she didn't make one,
Yep.
that she kept Coach or Albert or whoever from making those big moves, from turning on their own alliance, because she knew those were her numbers to the end.
And she could do that because that was such a toxic alliance.
It, oh, yeah. But I was thinking of not Coach, Sophie, watching Kyle here bring Tiana and TK together, kind of play peacemaker. And TK says, like, that wasn't a shot directly at you. I didn't know who it was that was smiling or what was going on. That was just me venting in the moment.
Yeah.
Tiana's still not thrilled with how things went, but the trio decides to stick together. At least they say they are. And they're going to target Sue. Meanwhile, we flip to the other half of the tribe. And, like, you and me are into the challenge. You co host New Generation Challengers. A
I'm
lot
still
of
here, by the
times,
way.
what?
I said I'm still here, by the way. I was just stretching.
Okay. A lot of times with the challenge, when there's two conflicting alliances, they say like this side or the other side of the house.
Yeah.
We immediately flip to the other side of the tribe here, with Gabe, Sue, and Caroline are gonna put a plan into action to target TK, and they want to bring Tiana in as a 4.
Yeah.
And so here's what I wrote down here. I'm curious at this point, and this kind of goes into just thought philosophy of how to approach the pre-merge that we were just talking about. Sue versus TK. Like, what would you do here if you're on this tribe? How are you voting?
Hmm. It's tough to say not being there because I obviously don't have those relationships with either side. So I think that's what it really would come down to. If I'm stuck in the middle, I'm just looking at who am I getting along with the most and who do I think is going to be the most trustworthy to me and want me to go further than the other player.
Yeah, and I might be biased because Tiana and TK are both on my tribe, and like
Yeah.
I like this trio better than the other trio. What I wrote down here was, if it's me, I'd vote for Sue
Hmm.
because of what I said earlier. Pre-merge, you need to keep the tribe strong so you can stay away from tribal. And I think
Right.
while Sue may be better socially and not rub people the wrong way as easily, I think TK helps you in challenges more overall would be my guess. It's like the Andy thing from week 1 that we
Yeah, good
talked to
point.
Liz about. So that's my thought process behind that.
Yeah, I like that.
This next thing is interesting here, and we'll see how this goes next week. Tiana says she's afraid to blindside TK because that would also be blindsiding Kyle, and she doesn't want to have to try and rebuild from that.
Yeah, that's very smart. Um, at the same time, if she does make that move, Kyle just becomes off on his own and is going to be easy to get rid of next, should he still be there. Or should they have to vote, I mean.
I'm glad you said that. I have thoughts about that I will get into when we get. I'm excited to get to tribal. We normally just kind of breeze through tribal, but this was a very interesting, thought-provoking result. So,
Yeah,
but I do love this thought process from Tiana of not just, oh, it benefits me to vote this person out, but what about this other person that the three of us are in alliance? How does that affect my relationship with them?
yeah, that's very
Genuinely
smart.
thinking about things from all perspectives. She then, right after that, says it would make sense to vote out Sue but she has trouble working with TK because she still feels that in some way he disrespected her. And again, she says this, sometimes you need to swallow your pride and do what's best for your game. A
Yep.
sentiment we've seen her express in the EW cast release and now, twice in the episode now. And I love this thought process. I loved it in the cast release. I'm pleasantly surprised we're seeing it play out in her thoughts here. So we get to Tribal. And going into Tribal, my thought was TK needs to be careful with his answers here and not tick Tiana off or push her away. And one of the first things that happens here is interesting to me. There's a bit of a I don't know how this comes up. I think Sue mentions that TK's not hasn't talked to her or anything.
Yeah.
And TK calls Sue out for not talking to people or not initiating conversation. And he even says, I've tried to talk to you and it's gotten me nowhere. What were your thoughts as
That I found interesting. Even if it may be true, I don't think you want to call people out at this stage of the game.
but
It, ju-
if it's that person or you calling them out and kind of making that known
yeah,
could it didn't, but it could help him in a way.
I just wouldn't want to be seeming like I'm too desperate and just essentially making things up for the sole purpose of political benefit to the point that everyone just would want me out.
Yeah, so my last thing here before the votes, TK was given a chance to clarify whatever comments he made at the challenge, and I didn't write down what he said, but I wrote down I think he did an okay job here, and he
Yeah,
made sure to say he wasn't trying to single anyone out.
yeah, I agree.
At this point, I came into Tribal saying he needed to not take off Tiana and not push her away because she was the deciding vote here. Well, sort of. She could have forced a tie, but I, at this
Who
point,
wants
I'm
to be a
feeling like,
tie at this point when you know that you're not getting any votes?
yeah, at this point, I feel like he did an okay job. I'm thinking he probably did well enough to save himself based on everything we've seen her say. I don't necessarily like him right now, but I I feel good. I You have to work with people you don't like.
Yep.
So right before Probst reads the votes, Gabe plays an idol on himself. And my first thought for about 10 seconds was why? And I put about 3 question marks and exclamation points altering with each other, 3 of each. Then about 10 seconds later I wrote down, "Oh, insurance against rocks."
That's it. Very smart of Gabe. I like this play.
So TK does go home and it surprised me. At this point, Kyle looks genuinely surprised and disappointed, and I'm wondering, she's talked about if she blindsides TK, having to try and recover from with Kyle and
Yeah,
redo
he looked
that,
very upset about it.
and I'm wondering if she'll be able to or not.
I do not think so, but we will see.
So let's get before we do top and bottom and align blindside first boot because we've already on kind of a long episode here, but this is a great talking point. What are your thoughts on this result here?
Um, I think with this result that this tribe seemed to be a little divided. And whether we like the result or don't like the result, I think it's going to help them move forward.
I think it will, like as a group. I'll put it this way. I think this was a dumb move by Tiana. Am I selling any of my stock on her as my winner pick? Absolutely not. She proved in this episode that she has great thought processes and kind of she seems to approach this game like a winner does.
It's a lot better if you are going to make a dumb move in this game to make it when
Yeah.
there's 16 players left than 6 or 7.
Well, everything we saw her say was, I don't like TK, but it's better for my game to keep him. I don't like him,
Yeah.
but you need to work with people you don't like. And at this point, to me, it kind of just feels like that was all talk. I know it's not. I know we saw her say it in the cast release. But when push came to shove, she voted out the person she didn't like.
Mhm.
And this alliance you just went with, and you piqued my interest with this earlier. You said if they go back to tribal, Kyle's alone, he's an easy out. This alliance you just voted with is a very strong three. They brought you in for a vote.
Yeah,
You're on the bottom. If that's an I'm not convinced that's even an alliance of four now. I think they wanted her for one vote.
that's interesting.
If it's an
You make a
alliance of
good point.
even if it is an alliance of four, Tiana's clearly the bottom of that four, and I think she
Right.
knows it too. They were trying to hide how close they were. I think if I remember right, she even mentioned in confessional at one point how close the three of them were.
Yeah,
I get it. You don't want to go to Rocks this early. Two people got votes. They're not eligible for Rocks. One person plays an idol. So if it's Rocks, you have a 1 in 3 chance of going home. But so does Caroline, and so does Kyle. It's not
exactly.
necessarily you. What
Yep,
makes you think one of the other two isn't going to blink in a revote?
that's true.
And ultimately, like I get it. It keeps them away from Rocks. It keeps yourself in the game. Nobody wants to be Katie Collins or Pascal English or
Yeah, and at least
I just
those two got to be play most of the game.
I'm just I was surprised by this move first off because it just kind of goes against everything she said in every confessional this episode and
You're right.
every thought process we saw her walk through about working with people you don't like, about not wanting to blindside Kyle. I just don't get it. I
Yep,
don't think it's a good move by her at all.
you're
She's
probably
still my
right.
winner pick. I think she's going deep. I hate this move from her perspective.
Fair
That
enough.
that's my hot take, I guess, from this episode that I've said we'll get to the conclusion that I had things to say 2 or 3 times. That's all I had. I just I don't know. I feel like I'm on the Survivor version of First Take right now and just spewing out a take that feels hot. I don't know if people agree with me or not. We'll make this a social post.
Yeah, we will find out on Survivor Fan Jury this week.
Does what I'm saying make sense though?
It does. I think you're onto a really good point. I can see arguments for both sides, and we'll know what's right and what isn't as we move into the next episode or two.
If she goes home soon, I will be heartbroken because she's my winner pick. Because I don't want to lose in this dumb draft game again. Because I've been being reminded about that draft since about halfway through last season.
Hey, he doesn't message me about it at all.
No, but I text with him multiple times a day.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's fair.
and I deserve it. I talked a lot of bragging about 45, but I'm ready for it to be my turn again.
Yeah,
But at the same time, the silver lining to the awful dark snow storm cloud that would be Tiana going home would be that this hot take here and this pedestal I just put myself on was correct.
that's true.
If if Kyle goes home next, if this is the new Lulu, if Kyle goes next, then they go back to tribal, I think it's her.
Yeah,
If that even is a four, I still think it might be a three that they just wanted her for a vote this one time. She's at the bottom, even if it is a four, and I don't know how you dig yourself out of
and is
that.
she necessarily, if they go back to tribal council, even safe with Kyle there?
I think her and Kyle are going to be huge if she can
Yeah,
recover that. I think there's a chance for them to be fine because Kyle's going to realize he needs her if they're going to be in the game because
yep,
the other three are close. You're not breaking those other three up.
nope, you're right.
So that's it. That's my little soapbox and why I think this was a dumb move from Tiana. I still think she's going to win. Every winner's made dumb moves. Like, it happens.
True.
So, top and bottom, who do you have?
So by top, we're talking about, just to confirm the rules, like we did before, the player who is not going home, right?
Yeah, so it's like later in the season we started doing full power rankings. It's basically the same criteria as that. We're just only sharing our top and our bottom because
All
we
right. So
don't
the
have the
player
time to do
who's
it.
in my mind, the safest position, who is not going home this week, is Rome.
Yeah,
Not for anything that he's doing in this game, because he's playing horribly, but he has an immunity idol that is valid for one tribal council. And unlike Sam and um, Sierra, who both have found the same thing, they are talking about playing it on Andy. They also could back away from that and decide at the same time this is kind of a joint idol. It's either they could decide to play it on one of them and votes could come to the other player and it could be misplayed. If Rome has the idol and he is saying, I am not going home, then he's not going home.
yeah.
Because I don't think there's going to be idol nullifiers in this game. We haven't seen that since Island of the Idols.
And if he had the three tribe idol, the three tribal idol, there would be
That he would be
some
in a much more
speculation that
risky
he could keep
position.
it, but he has the one tribal idol. There's no speculation there.
That's it.
Everything you're saying makes sense. I'm trying to think of someone to put at the top of my list that I can feel good about basing it on the way the game is gone so far. So here we go. I'm gonna say Sierra because,
I like that.
well, first off, anyone on blue is eliminated. This was just so I don't feel good putting any of them saying they're safe at this point. Red, they all, other than Rome, can go home, but I refuse to put Rome at the top of a power ranking just when he's been awful game wise so far. Here's
Yeah.
my thought process with Sierra. Yes, Andy is the one who technically has the idol. But you think about it, not Andy, Sam. Andy's going to have a target from Annika and Rachel. Sam and Annika have both kind of said they don't trust the other one. Annika said Sam having this idol makes him more of a target than he already was. He's very likable, very smart. Rachel, I don't really know what to do with. I kind of put her in this same boat, but
Yeah.
nobody's pointed a finger at Sierra.
You're right.
Any heat from that idol is going to go to Sam because Annika and Rachel, Andy doesn't know who has it at all.
Yeah.
Annika and Rachel only know that Sam has it. They don't know that he found it with her.
That's true.
My bottom, I hate to do this. I don't think this person, I just have this gut feeling this person's not going home next week. But based on this week, I think they're in the toughest position to dig out of. And unfortunately, that's going to be my guy Kyle, who I really like. He's not on my tribe, but I really like him. He's in a bit of a tough spot, and he did everything right. He did everything he could. But sometimes you can do everything you can, and the cookie just still doesn't fall your way. And I
Yeah.
think he's in that spot.
For mine in the bottom, I'm kind of thinking of last season. You may recall that I think I had 2 weeks in a row that I put Gem at the top and she just vanished from the game far too early.
She started so good.
Yeah, she started so good, but also played a very hard game and an aggressive game. And I think that's where it kind of fell apart for her.
Yeah.
With this whole idol thing going on and advantages notably surrounded by Rome, I am thinking we are going to see a repeat with Gem. And I'm going to put Teeny as the one that get voted out this week.
Huh. Interesting.
And I think that if Rome is not going anywhere, himself and Genevieve can easily get Seoul and Asia on their side. And that will put Teeny's game in a very risky position as someone who has clearly at least attempted to work with everybody on this tribe so far and seem will be exposed as playing hard and potentially not telling a different story to every single player and therefore leaving everyone to think that they're being dishonest.
Yeah, that's a great point. So diving into a line blindside first boot, which we have not done for a while.
We have
Didn't
not.
do it with Liz. We didn't do it on the draft. We didn't do it on the cast release. And we had 4 weeks of Mount Rushmore before that we never did it.
Yeah.
Our game is finally. We might have done it on the Mount Rushmore with Steven, actually. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Either way, our game is finally back. And I have for you three new era women.
And
And
just so the audience knows, in case you're wondering why we haven't done it, cast releases and stuff, we don't really know where we're going. When we have former players on, we don't want to put them in that awkward position of doing a line blindside first boot
yeah,
because they have personal relationships with all of these people as opposed to just viewer relationships that the rest of us do. So
now
that's why we'll skip it once in a while.
the cast release we just forgot. I think we've done it on the past two cast
Yeah.
releases with 45 and 46. But I have three new era women for you that are also new era women of color, which is fun. I
Interesting.
have Jay Maya from one of my favorite, probably my favorite new era tribes,
Yep.
Reba from 45. We have Jem from 46, which is funny because I decided this right after the episode ended, and you mentioned Jem without me telling you this at all. And lastly, someone I really like so far, someone I'm very unsure of her future, but I think she could win. I think she could go home next. Annika.
Interesting. I am going to first and foremost right away align with Jem. I thought she was an excellent player who just hit a bad week, but someone that I think could have gone very far in the game. I think Jem is the best player in this group. Um, and that would help her go far. That leads me to this is an interesting. This is interesting because I've seen Jay play a whole season. I haven't seen Annika obviously play very much yet.
But we didn't see
And
a ton from Jay.
no, we didn't. You're right. And with not seeing a ton from her, like you say, and I was thinking the same kind of thing, that's going to lead me to first boot Jay.
Yeah.
Because I just don't, I've seen her play, but I don't necessarily trust her abilities to help move an alliance forward in Survivor. As far as Annika goes, we're seeing her play a decent game. We haven't got a lot, but I'm interested. I'm certainly interested to see how far she goes and what she can bring to this season.
Yeah, I'm I really like Annika so far. I just there are things in her game that make me think she can go to the final three, and there are other times I think she's gonna go next. I really am having a hard time figuring her out as a player. But I'm gonna first boot Jay for the reason that I feel like I know the least about how she plays.
Yep.
We're 2 episodes into 47, but Annika's gotten a decent amount of screen time, so I feel like I know her game better than Jay's. Because Jay made it to like the merge, I think. The merge, not like their like episode after the merge that they call the merge for some reason. And no, I'm not gonna drop that bone. I'm going
No.
to die on that hill. That what they call the merge is the episode after the merge. Even though the first episode season we did as a podcast, we called it "Earn the Jury" on an episode, trying to be funny and take a lighthearted shot. And then we found out the next episode of, oh, one of you still won't make the jury. So that's what
I'm I'm just gonna say with this whole merge debate that gets brought up again, thanks to your line of questioning, one thing dating all the way back to Survivor 41, and I know the audience probably knows exactly where I'm going with this, but justice for Queen Sydney, she made the merch.
Yeah. So back to what I was saying, because I get sidetracked easier than the dog on Up does. And if you've seen that movie, that's a fantastic description of me. That's why my co-host is laughing right now. But despite that Jay Maya made the merge, or maybe an episode after, I think she just didn't get a ton of screen time. She was on a tribe with big personalities, like even though he was first gone from this tribe, like a Sifu, like a Julie, like an Austin, and especially Drew and Dee.
Yeah,
We didn't get a ton of screen time from J Mai. I don't really feel confident to say I know how she plays the game or how her strategy goes.
that's
This
true.
the last two is where I get conflicted. Because from what we've seen, you're probably right. Jem's the best player, but I feel like there's potential with Annika to possibly be better.
True.
So I don't know. I'm gonna blindside Annika reluctantly, but my reasoning is so many times, especially early on, we've seen two people find an idol together or find an advantage or something like that,
Yep.
and it brings them closer together. Annika's response being, "Oh, this might." Her first confessional we saw was, "Maybe this makes Sam more of a target than he already was." I don't
True.
want to be Sam in that scenario,
Yeah.
and I feel like maybe if it was Rachel, Annika's response wouldn't have been that way. I don't know, but I'm going to align with Jem and blindside Annika slowly because I don't know how quick Annika is to trust, and you have to have trust in this game.
Yeah. That's a good point. Ready for mine?
Yeah,
Okay, so with Sam being my player of the week and my winner pick, I am going to give you three players from the state of Tennessee
okay.
in this. So your options are from Survivor um, South Pacific, Whitney Duncan, from Survivor San Juan del Sur, Baylor Wilson, and from Survivor Worlds Apart slash Game Changers, Haley Ford.
Ooh. Okay, so I'm first booting Baylor, just right off the bat, because not necessarily against her. I like the other two better.
Fair enough. One
My
thing I always wondered just before you continue, though, is I would agree with you. I'm also going to first boot Baylor, but I would like to see Baylor play on a season without her mom, though.
Yeah, I don't like her mom at all.
I think that the having that mother daughter parent relationship in Blood versus Water just doesn't work as well. We see that with her. We see that with Kelly Wentworth.
Works for Sierra and Laura
Yeah, good point. But at that point, Sierra is also already a mother, so
still.
she's grown up quite a bit.
I'm first booting Baylor. I just don't think we would work very well together based on what we saw in the game. My other thing is, hmm. Okay, here's what I'll say. Oh, forgot it now. As soon as you said Whitney, my thought was align with her because I liked her on South Pacific. I really liked her and Keith on Amazing Race 25. Pit Stop Pals just finished recapping that season.
Yep.
Such a fun season, incredible cast. Go listen to our recaps. Ton of fun. Also, go listen to the latest Pit Stop Pals. Brett appeared on there with us, so
Yep.
both of the people that put up with me on a weekly basis were in a on a Zoom call together. So much fun. But I really like Haley. We don't see a ton from Haley though.
We don't.
And it's we see more of her on both of her seasons than we ever saw with Jay on 45. I at least know how Haley plays as a player,
Mm-hmm.
but she's merge boot both times, and I question if her game has the ability to go deep into the game. And I really like her. I think I'm wrong on that. I think she could, but I'm going to align with Whitney just because I've seen more of her. Saw her personality a lot more on Amazing Race. when she wasn't surrounded by Cochran and Coach and Ozzy and giant personalities. So I'm going to first boot Baylor, align with Whitney, and blindside Haley, probably at the merge, three-time merge boot.
Nice. I am going to agree with you, but for a slightly different reason. Um, I'm gonna agree with you completely on Baylor. I'm also gonna blindside Haley and align with Whitney. If we go back to a specific issue that came up on South Pacific with Cochran, the winner of Karamoan, I just sit there and go, I do not want to blindside Whitney. She will never vote for you at final if you do.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good
So
point.
that's my reason.
You might have convinced me. Oh, well, this was a fun episode. One of our longer episodes, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
But we had some great discussion this week, dude. Can't wait to interact with the fans and our listeners over socials this next week.
that should be good.
I feel like one of the first times I've ever really gotten up on a soapbox with a strong opinion like that, but that was fun.
That was
And check out Pit Stop Pals, all the reality rom content. How is New Generation Challengers going over there?
New Generation Challengers is going great. We've done our first few episodes now. We're back on schedule. Unfortunately, we're going to be a day delayed for this week due to some technical difficulties, but we'll be out on Monday instead of tomorrow.
Yeah, and hopefully the guy
And
that
if you're
uploads.
listening to this not on the day we launch it, if you're listening on Sunday, it'll be out tomorrow. If you're listening during the week next week, then New Generation Challenges is already there. Maybe an interesting thing just to put out here in regards to that show because you and I did it. TT and I took a variation this week of us doing our power rankings, and we're doing the player that we think is safest that week and which target we think is most likely to go home.
So it's like when we do this, when we early in
Pretty,
the season
pretty
only do
much,
the
it's
top
a
and bottom of our power ranking.
top and bottom. It's just we've reformatted it a bit to fit the structure of Battle of the Eras.
Yeah. So that's super fun. Can't wait to listen to that. Hopefully the guy that uploads your all stuff to our audio platform does it on time this
That
episode.
would be you.
Yeah, that's been a struggle the past
Oh,
episode
it's
too.
fine.
But
You're doing great.
with that being said, check out all the reality realm stuff. Keep up with our socials. Grab your torches and head back to camp. Bye everyone.
Good night.